Silas, old friend. Today is the big day.
Indeed, Buster. Let us show them some
Welcome to the grand opening of the Whisker and Ladle,
where I do all of the real cooking.
Come on in and grab a table.
Honestly, the lack of Let's see your little chalkboard compete with...
Almost there. Just a little more speed.
Are you sure that's safe, Silas? It's in the red zone.
Relax, Buster. Malagay me. Behold.
Silas, look out! I can't stop it, Buster. We're doomed.
Goodness me, the dough!
At least my chocolate is making an impression. Just a little more kneading. Incoming.
Whoa!
I had that under control until you interfered.
Control? We are covered in cream and rolling downhill.
Oh no! Look out for the cream!
Well, this is going to be delicious.
Look out!
My compliments to the chef.
Well, that was messy. But delicious, wasn't it, Buster?
This is your fault, Silas.
My fault? You're the one who slipped.
Wow. This cream is amazing. It really is.
Pass the spoon, I want some too.
Peppered. It was a typical morning in Paris, always smelling of fresh croissants. But in this quiet side street, the morning idyll was being broken by a silent yet fierce confrontation. Here, on the cobblestone street, stood two establishments directly opposite each other. The first, caressed by the early sunbeams, was Buster's restaurant. The chef himself, Buster, a huge, coal-black cat with a bottomless kind gaze, had already taken up a battle position at the window. His snow-white toque seemed to have a life of its own, wobbling at every breath. He crossed his paws over his vast belly, encircled by a white apron, and, with a slight squint, stared across the street. Buster wore a red tie, miraculously not hidden by his lush whiskers, which were eternally dusted with flour. He was an old-school chef. If it was a sauce, it was a full ladle. If it was a pie, it was one a single person couldn't carry. The sign above his establishment, the whisker and ladle, spoke for itself. It was carved from old dark wood, with elements of forged iron, and featured a charming drawing of lush cat whiskers crossed with an antique chef's ladle. This sign, just like Buster himself, promised warmth, comfort, and portions that wouldn't fit on a single plate. Directly across the street, a few dozen meters away, stood the realm of his rival. Silas's restaurant was ultramodern. Glass, chrome, and facades of polished concrete. Silas, a snow-white cat with sly, ever-scheming green eyes, stood in his window. He wore a black toque, a black apron, and an elegant black bow tie that emphasized his aristocratic paleness. He held tiny culinary tweezers elegantly in his paw and looked at Buster with such contempt as if the other had just offered him a taste of canned tuna. Silas's sign, the goose's heel, was just as concise as his menu. Thin neon letters of a cold blue light spelled out the name on frosted glass, and below them was a minimalist, barely perceptible logo suggesting the outline of a goose foot. This was a place for those who valued concept in food, not calories. Buster was the first to lose patience. With a loud huff into his flowery whiskers, he resolutely ran out onto the wooden porch. With a clatter, he put out a chalkboard sign that had a broad inscription in English. Today's special, meat pie. Buster triumphantly planted his paws on his hips and laughed, causing his round belly to shake funnily. Silas merely arched an eyebrow. Sizing Buster up with a look, he took out a futuristic remote control with icy calm and pressed a button. A neon screen slid out with a hiss above the entrance to the goose's heel, and an English inscription flared up on it. Today's special, miraculously. Silas elegantly snapped his fingers, not taking his eyes off his rival. The duel had been declared open. An hour later, work was already in full swing in Buster's kitchen. More precisely, it was bubbling there. Chef Buster, all in clouds of flour, was furiously rolling a huge wooden rolling pin in his paws, flattening a gigantic sheet of dough on the table. He did this at such speed that whole clouds rose into the air, creating a small culinary hurricane. Buster squinted, his whiskers twitched funnily, but he did not give up. At that moment, his nose, unable to withstand the floury attack, began to dilate. The cat's eyes rounded from an approaching sneeze. He threw his head back, opened his mouth, and, powerfully, epically, in a way that made the pots ring, sneezed right into the pile of flour in front of him. A white cloud explosion occurred, in which the chef vanished. When the flour settled, Buster was nowhere to be seen. More precisely, he had been thrown back by the force of his own sneeze. He fell on his back onto the rolled-out sheet of dough, which instantly wraps around him from the impact. Thus, Buster turned into a huge, dense, round cocoon of dough. The cocoon swayed and rolled rapidly toward the kitchen exit. Meanwhile, at the goose's heel, Silas was conducting a war with technology. He stood before a complex chrome device, a molecular siphon, covered with buttons and pressure gauges, the needle of one of which was ominous trembling in the red zone. Silas, trying to maintain his sang-froid, confidently took a metallic sprayer connected to the device by a hose into his paws and aimed at the plate to apply a final touch. He pulled the trigger. The device made a loud whistling sound, and instead of a light, airy foam, a powerful, thick stream of brown chocolate cream mousse hit Silas right in the face. From surprise, the white cat dropped the sprayer and it fell onto the floor buttoned down. This was a fatal error. The sprayer lay on the floor, holding the button down, and continuously shot a jet of jet cream into the ceiling. Silas, whose entire face was now hidden under a layer of chocolate, tried to catch the hose but stepped on the slippery cream, slipped, and funnily flew into the air, desperately flailing his paws. Events unfolded rapidly from there. The erupting siphon spun madly on the floor, drenching everything around it. The hose wrapped around Silas, and the reactive force of the chocolate jet dragged the white cat along. Silas, with eyes bulging from horror, flew under the kitchen ceiling like he was on a malfunctioning jetpack, knocking down pots and frying pans. And then both restaurants seemed to exhale. Out onto the street from the doors of the Whisker and Ladle flew a huge round lump of dough with black paws and tail sticking out. Simultaneously, from the panoramic window of the goose's heel, shattering the glass into tiny, but undoubtedly conceptual, fragments, a white cat flew out under the pressure of the chocolate jet. Silas crashed back first, at full speed, exactly into the middle of Buster's rolling round lump of dough. The white and black cats were embedded into one huge, fast-spinning culinary ball. This grotesque culinary meteor rushed down a sloped cobbled street. The cats within the ball continued to fight. So from the lump, an angry black face in a white hat and a scared white cat in a black hat with a rolling pin flashed alternately. The lump knocked down street umbrellas, chairs, and umbrellas on its way, causing pigeons to scatter with indignant cooing. At the end of the street, as luck would have it, or on the contrary, very conveniently, an old vintage van with an open top, filled with milk cans, was parked. On the side of the van was a large inscription in English. farm cream. The gigantic culinary lump flew at breakneck speed straight into the back of this van. An epic explosion occurred. A colossal explosion, but fortunately, a completely soft one. Tons of fluffy, snow-white whipped cream scattered in all directions like from a volcano. The entire street was covered in a perfect, airy cream snowdrift in a second. When the cream stopped flying, silence reigned in the side street. At the summit of the perfect white mountain, two tails slowly and synchronously appeared. One jet black, the other snow white. The tails twitched funnily from side to side, clearing the way for the cats. The cats crawled out of the snowdrift. Their images had changed beyond recognition. Buster was completely covered in white cream, so his red tie was barely visible and had become like a fluffy but very unhappy poodle. Silas, on the contrary, was smeared with brown chocolate from the siphon from head to toe, having turned into a chocolate cat. They stood opposite each other, breathing heavily and frowning grimly. At that moment, a little boy, out for a walk with his mom, approached the snowdrift. He looked at Buster with curiosity, carefully extended a finger, licked the cream off his paw, tasted it, and jumped joyfully, pointing at the cats. People around started to smile, take out spoons, and eat the resulting cream snowdrift with appetite. It seemed this was the most delicious dessert this street had ever seen. The finale of this story was just as unusual as its beginning. Buster and Silas, now clean, were sitting side by side on a kitchen bench at the whisker and ladle. Between them stood a luxurious shared dessert. Silas carefully placed a mint leaf on top with tweezers, and Buster, with a kind, sly grin, slams a huge strawberry right next to it, slightly disrupting the harmony, but adding flavor. Silas comedically rolled his eyes, but did not object. They sat on the bench, and throughout all 8 seconds, the camera fixed how the cats comically, alternately nudge each other with their elbows in the ribs, trying to playfully push the rival, but at the same time, both looked straight into the camera, smiling broadly, good-naturedly, and absolutely innocently. Warm, soft evening sunset light poured into the side street, where peace finally reigned. In the foreground, in the center of the screen, large, beautiful golden letters in a retro movie style smoothly appeared. The end.
Buster in the kitchen, black cat, white hat. Silas on the table saying, pass that spat. One chops onions fast, one tastes with pride. Both got little aprons and a lot of feeler inside. Buster flips a pancake, it lands on his tail. Silas rolls a noodle, then he starts to wail. The sax goes, the piano goes plink. Then a tiny fart says, hey, wait a sec, I think. They stare at the stove, then they stare at each other. One whisk in the air, now the soup starts to smother. Buster says, buddy. Silas says, chef. Then the whole room shakes with a farty little rest. Buster and Silas, feline chefs on fire. Buster and Silas, cooking higher and higher. Buster and Silas, something pie then wow. Buster and Silas, ta-da, meow, meow, meow. Silas drops a carrot, it bounces off a pan. Buster wears a spoon like a royal frying man. The trumpet sneezes, the cello bowls low. They serve up fish tartare with a side of oh no. Buster pulls a face like the peas betrayed him. Silas loses balance and the dumplings go BAM! Then a birdsong lets go in the middle of the groove. The audience laughs as the cutlets all move. They wipe down the counter with dramatic flair. Buster does a bow when Silas fixes hair. The oven door opens like a curtain call. Then a sneaky little toot makes the whole